Okay, big news now. Maple Leafs return to action tonight as they look to even up their first-round playoff series at 2.
He drops it for Marner. Marner out in front, and they score! Tipped in by Matthews.
Toronto's Matthew Knies opened the scoring in Wednesday's Game 3, but Brad Marchand would score 2 third-period goals here to give Boston that 4-2 win over at Scotiabank Arena. Another loss. This team will head to Boston on Tuesday facing elimination. We don't want to see that. So joining us to talk about the game is John Viveiros, the host of Hot Take Hockey podcast. Hi, John. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
I feel like the city's abuzz. We're excited about this game, also a little bit nervous. What do the Leafs need to do here to avoid going down 3-1 in the series?
Well, the huge conversation is if William Nylander is going to return.
Yeah.
And I think when you just look at the team itself, whether he's in or not, the power play has been a huge issue. They've been 1 for 11 on the series, 0 for 5 in Game 3. So that was a huge conversation, especially when you're looking at Boston. They've taken advantage of the power play, and that was kind of a big point for a guy like Jake DeBrusk, he's been a Leaf killer, and he scores there in Game 3 on the power play. So I think when you look at the power play, you look at the special teams, it's always a point of conversation when a successful team goes far. And then, of course, goaltending. Ilya Samsonov only has an .895 save percentage, so definitely below average right now for a goalie performance in the playoffs. But I don't think fans are too on him right now, especially when you look at the other side. Jeremy Swayman has just had Toronto's number. He's had great numbers. So I do think on those fronts, you definitely got to get to Jeremy Swayman, but also you got to score on the power play.
So you mentioned this big question, Nylander. I mean, we're starting to see some social media posts from reporters following this. It's suggesting that he could play tonight. What's the latest on this? What do you think? You think we'll see him?
So it's such a tough situation because they were keeping it under wraps, and now we do know that it is migraines he's been dealing with. So this is an ongoing situation for William Nylander. This isn't just a physical injury where you can look at a timeline. This is ongoing, and we're unsure if he did deal with a concussion towards the end of the year. But we know with his tinted visor, this is something he's dealt with for a couple seasons now, and more so it's been affecting him towards the end of the year. But this is a guy that played all 82 games. He doesn't miss hockey games. So to see him miss the first 3 games of this series, fans are confused. They don't know what's going on, but he was fairly content and good spirits yesterday. And I think when you look at William Nylander, that power play issue, he solves that right away. And in practice, he was actually skating with the #1 power play unit. So I think that's a really good sign to see him tonight.
Okay, well, cross our fingers for that one. I guess we'll have to wait and see if he's actually in the game. Also want to ask about Austin Matthews. Obviously, we want to see him here tonight. And we're learning a little bit. He hasn't been feeling great. Is that what it sounds like?
He was battling an illness in Game 3, so I think that's even something fans should be content with, is that he played. He was ill and he played, so I think now we're here a few days later. The Leafs had an extra day off in Toronto. They didn't have to travel, so you're back at home Saturday night, and Austin Matthews hopefully feeling better. So I think when you look at this team, Austin Matthews had that big goal in Game 2, and there's no player on this team that has more than 1 goal. His good buddy Mitch Marner hasn't gotten on the board yet. So I think when you're looking at Austin Matthews specifically, hopefully he's back to his health, because we saw a decent game from him in Game 3, but we saw him fully healthy in Game 2, and we saw one of his best performances as a Leaf.
Yeah, we'll hope for he's feeling 100% for tonight. Yeah. You mentioned this too, this extra day, and this kind of got people talking because it sounds like maybe Boston, at least Boston's coach, wasn't thrilled to spend an extra day here. How could that extra rest day benefit the Leafs, and could it benefit Boston? What's your take on that one?
I think we'll definitely see more of the benefit for Toronto, for sure. I think Boston definitely switched kind of the momentum factor in Game 3 there. And when you're specifically looking at the Toronto home crowd, I know there was also criticism publicly about the lower bowl and the suits. But I do think specifically when you look at Jim Montgomery, he's been playing a lot of mind games as the Boston Bruins head coach. So I do think that it's kind of going back and forth. Sheldon Keefe may be a less experienced coach, but a guy that's seen a few playoff entrances here for Toronto. So I do think Toronto has the extra advantage here. They're in familiar territory at home, and I think that's kind of helped for William Nylander being around the guys, right? And when they went to Boston for the first couple of games, he stayed back. He was watching from the TV, so he was nervous. Yeah. But now being at home, being with the guys, I think that's probably a huge thing for his morale. And of course, if he's healthy enough to go, I mean, that's going to be a huge presence for the team.
My last question, who do you think needs to step it up? I mean, you mentioned Marner hasn't scored yet. You know, is that a player you think you would like to see a little bit more of in the series?
100%. I think fans are getting a little bit frustrated. I mean, when you're talking about an $11 million player, you want him to step up. So he only had that 1 assist in Game 2, which was a really nice assist for Matthew Knies' goal. But I think when you're looking at Mitch Marner, you expect him to play big on the big stage. So I think when Austin Matthews has a goal so far, John Viveiros, obviously William Nylander hasn't been in the lineup, but Mitch Marner is the obvious answer. I think The youngster Nick Robertson, he's getting a chance to stay in the lineup, and I think when you look at him, Sheldon Keefe is giving him that opportunity because when he did enter the lineup, when he was in and out, he would score goals. So you want him to step up. Calle Jarnkrok, a 20-goal scorer in the season, he was coming back from injury, so we're going to see where he's at. And then I think past that, you just want your depth coming together. I think Tyler Bertuzzi has a goal himself. Max Domi has a goal himself. Those guys have been great.
Yeah.
Probably just more discipline from those guys. But I do think it's got to be kind of a full team effort here. And at the end of the day, like I said, the power play, but also you've got to score a goal early to get the home crowd going. Because if you look at Game 3, they didn't score until the second period. Fans were maybe a little bit tense and just nervous with how the game was going. But if you score, I mean, I go all the way back last year, Game 2, they lost rough against Tampa. Mitch Marner scores in the very first minute of the game. Fans erupt, right? So if you could do that tonight at home, I think it gets the fans going and it gets the players going too.
Yeah, and Matt Cos was even saying from TSN, more than 2 goals would be a benefit to the team as well, right?
100%.
John, thank you. I know it's going to be a long day, so thank you for taking the time to come in, and we'll get in touch with you after the game tonight.
Of course. Thanks for having me.